Hi everyone, Anthony Fantano here, internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for a review of the new Busdriver record, Perfect Hair. This is the latest full-length LP of longtime abstract art rapper Busdriver. As you might know, he is a member of the recently formed HELLFYRE Club Collective, all of whom have been making an incredible amount of noise this year with a gauntlet of solo projects, people like No Can Do, Open Mike Eagle, Milo has a new album out as well, but Busdriver, he just came out with his. For as long as I've known about Busdriver's music, I have admired his incredibly unorthodox approach. However, I have not always enjoyed it. For example, with his last full-length LP, Bo's $Eros, a project that is seriously difficult to put into words. However, I was very, very turned off by the kind of wacky, off-the-wall instrumentals and Busdriver's singing, especially. I was just hoping on this new project of his, he would go back to the idiosyncratic rapping, rapid-fire rapping that I enjoyed so much on his earlier projects. And he does do that on Perfect Hair. He finds balance between his fast, tonally schizophrenic, nasally flows and his singing. Now on this record, Busdriver is riding some of the weirdest instrumentals I've ever heard him on before. Among the producers on this album are Busdriver himself. He actually does quite a bit of the production on this record. Also Riley Lake, you might remember him. He's worked with Milo, Monopoly of Brainfeeder Records, also Jeremiah J, Kenny Siegel, Great Dane, and Mike Gow. And the instrumentals are incredibly appropriate for Busdriver, for these songs as well. They're modern, they're envelope pushing, they're glitchy, they're subtle. At times they are quite beautiful and ethereal too. Some instrumentals have some pretty sweet melodies weaved into them. Others, like the track Open Mike Eagle lands on, have the rattling trap-influenced hi-hats that turn up in so many instrumentals today, but they are turned up in the most insane way on this album here. And we've also got tracks that have quite a bit of jazz influence in them. It should be no surprise, given Busdriver's lyrical track record and instrumental track record, that this album is the most unorthodox thing that has been HELLFYRE Club affiliated thus far. The absurdism in the lyrics on this record, the satire, Busdriver lyrically and song structurally purposefully avoiding coherence. It's like this record is hip-hop's long-awaited answer to Captain Beefheart. It's only appropriate that on the song Bliss Point, Busdriver's flows are met with some really wild, angular sax riffing. Because the way Busdriver's flows punctuate beats, it is very horn-like. The pace at which he blurts out words over instrumentals is a lot like that of a solo from a trumpet or a saxophone player playing a piece of hard bop. Each word is delivered with this incredibly loud and forceful, spasmodic brightness. But even though Driver's rapping may be fast and it may be loud and it may be eccentric and some of these beats may hit hard, I would not say this record is very visceral. It's more cerebral than anything. It may be kind of catchy and maybe you can bob your head to it to a degree, but it's just so dizzying and confusing and confounding and difficult. Right from the intro track on this LP, we're getting this lumbering groove, and instead of getting a catchy chorus to complement these verses, instead, we're getting these vocal breaks where Busdriver is just throwing out these random, ridiculous figures as to how much various things on this album cost. The studio costs this, the backup singers cost that, and all of these figures are astronomical. After all this, the instrumental suddenly goes ethereal, completely just melting away the momentum of the song. The mood changes instantaneously. There's a fantastic finish with just this throbbing, pulsating synthesizer sequence. And a lot of the lyrics on this track deal in hip-hop music, the music business, relevancy, dopeness, growing older, being 30 and having clothes that are still dirty and kind of questioning whether or not you're really in the right place in life. Busdriver reflecting on his continued participation in this music thing. It's not a very concise message. It's not like he just comes out and says it, but for whatever reason, at least to me, it kind of just feels like it's ringing very loud and very clear. And even though I do really love this track, I love this start of the record, I do kind of end up with some mixed feelings on this song and for the entirety of this album. I find these songs to be awe-inspiringly unique. I think they're fun and funny. I think they're clever. I think they're witty. But there are times when I think what Busdriver is doing lyrically and sometimes instrumentally or with his flow is so difficult, it can be a little, I don't know, unrewarding. But with Busdriver's really unapologetic sense of humor, it's not hard to warm up to what's happening here, especially on a track like Bliss Point that I mentioned earlier instrumentally. But lyrically, Busdriver's just railing on hip-hop as if it were a person, giving it these human qualities, saying, who is hip-hop dating? What does hip-hop check in the gender box? I don't think hip-hop has the body to pull off that outfit. I think I'm becoming better acclimated to what Busdriver wants to do sonically and vocally in this era of his career, but I also think he's finding ways to make music that is challenging but not unlistenable. Case in point, the song Ego Death. The first song, I think, really hit me hard when I first listened to this record and hit me as being catchy and one of the more easy to listen to on this record, not only because of the two great features from Aesop Rock and Danny Brown, but the instrumental too is fantastic. The ominous heavy bass, the distortion on this track, the beat on this thing too. It reminds me a lot of something LP would have pulled off on his last full length. There's a killer hook on here too. And lyrically and flow-wise, Busdriver destroys this track. His lyrics and just how he's spitting on this song is just so dizzying. It makes Aesop's verse right after like a walk in the park. And I am catching some themes of egoism or even anti-egoism, especially coming out of Aesop's verse where he's mentioning a bunch of really embarrassing or like humbling things. I mean, crashing your car, Mario pajama bottoms. And this is not the only track in this track listing that I think kind of feels catchy. There is When the Tooth-Lined Horizon Blinks with Open Mike Eagle, and the song features this hook that has the strange 3/4 flow over a 4/4 beat. Those rattling hi-hats I mentioned earlier are insane. I'm loving the warped synthesizer chords on this thing too. And things actually get a little more easygoing from here with tracks like Motion Lines, which is maybe one of the most serene and beautiful tracks on this entire record. There are some beautiful background vocals on this track, and even though Busdriver comes through with that really just fiery machine gun flow, he is all over the place on this beat. There are a lot of sad moments in his lyrics, specifically having to do with love. There's even a moment where he compares his love to a cervix tear. Ow. So there are some love loss themes coming through on some of the tracks here, like on King Cookie Faced as well, where it seems like Busdriver's maybe coming to terms with being a crappy person in a relationship, or maybe the relationship sort of broke apart and then afterwards realizing you might have been the cause of that, or you were a huge contributor of that, and you're sort of seeing all of your shortcomings for what they are. And then there is the song with Verbs, the track Can't You Tell I'm a Sociopath. It's one of the moments on this LP where Busdriver strikes that balance between being challenging yet instantly gratifying, something he doesn't always accomplish fully, especially on a song like Upsweep, where to me his singing and his incredibly nasal flow really hits like a breaking point of tolerance. But sometimes Busdriver's excessive strangeness has an undeniable appeal and beauty to it, like on the closer here, Colonize the Moon. The song that lyrically is really self-aware and hilarious, and instrumentally I think it's pretty beautiful. Sonically, I think between all the reverb and the very strange harmonized singing vocals, it really captures a sensation of the coldness of space. And with the mention of street fashion and money and other pieces of pop culture in this song, there's even a line here where Busdriver says it's important that his life reflects Pimp C fan fiction. It's almost like he's just taking everything he observes around him and just taking it in and just shoveling it in his mouth and just chewing it and chewing it and chewing it and then just bleh. And then he takes everything he has just spat out and rearranges it to reflect something he feels. And usually the raw emotion of what he is pontificating or reacting to comes through, but yet the way the words are arranged and the way the lines are arranged, it becomes kind of difficult to get the total 100% picture. However, I don't really think it takes away too much from the emotional impact of these songs, and I find the difficult jumble of a lot of the things he's expressing to be kind of invigorating and exciting and kind of fun. And very playful too. I'm loving this record. I am. It's a creative, it's a unique, it's an interesting record. Not just for Busdriver, not just for Hellfire Club, but for hip-hop in general. If you're looking for something that's just out there and it's riding the fringes, it's got a load of different musical influences and lots of lyrical tongue twisters, frenzied flows, then I would say give this album a listen. You will not be disappointed. If you love your music to puzzle you, then I most definitely invite you to a listen of this record. I'm feeling a decent to strong 8 on this thing. Transition, if you've given this Busdriver record a listen, what did you think of it? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Why? What do you think I should review next? And that's it. Anthony Fantano, Busdriver, Perfect Hair Forever.